In this video, we're going to take a look at a purple ink by Diamine, a part of their 150th anniversary set, Lilac Night. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description, you're going to find a link to the purple ink playlist, so if you want to see more purples, you can find those there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some very nice shading. Look at Quick going lighter to darker to lighter. Fox going lighter to darker. Lazy going darker to lighter. 13 seconds to dry. This looks very nice. Medium is darker than the extra fine, just a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. Yes, there is some shading where you see over going lighter to darker, brown going darker to midtone to darker to midtone, Fox going lighter to darker. 19 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both does show some color variation. It looks really good in the extra fine. Smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Sailor, my first pen with a fine medium nib, was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. Let's take a look at the next writing sample done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 20 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 27 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation because we're not getting it here, and the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this very nice purple that is working its way up pretty uniformly through this chromatography. And at the top, we get this very nice blue. Now, where they mix, you start seeing that much darker tone, and it's that purple and this blue that are really giving this ink some good shading. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's dunked into water. And the thing that we're going to notice here is the line at the bottom that is really becoming bonded with the filter paper in only 10 minutes, giving the idea that there may be a little bit of resistance to this ink. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It shades very nicely as the goes light to dark. Quick goes dark to midtone to dark. Brown goes dark to midtone to dark. 15 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, a little bit lighter than the stub. Has no feather spread, halo sheen. It shades very nice. Brown goes dark to light to dark. Quick goes dark to midtone to dark. Fox goes dark to midtone to dark, 20 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both don't show a ton of color variation, a little bit. I think it looks nicer in the writing. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it handles itself very well. There is a bit of spread and a bit of feathering that occurs from it, but all of the information is absolutely readable, making me feel okay to use it in a note-taking situation, especially if you need to go back and highlight. Now, water, you do see around the edges where it's starting to get a little bit of the white of the paper coming through, so water should be all that you need to get it out of your pen. It's all that I needed. Pen flush doesn't seem to be doing anything more than water did, and the 1/3 bleach solution is removing most all of it, but discoloring the paper as it's taking it away. The next writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper. We're doing this not to see performance differences, but more to see tone changes that are occurring as we work with this. I was really thinking that some of that blue with this yellow might make it a little more green leaning. It's not. This is a very opaque ink. We see that there's not a great deal of change. The yellow does make it a slight bit darker in the medium, but not in the extra fine or in the stub. Just in the medium, it looks a little bit darker. That's the only change, so you know this purple will stay this purple even on yellow paper. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Diamine's 150th Anniversary Lilac Night has a viscosity of 1.33, making it a bit wetter than normal, quite a bit wetter. The next writing sample is done on white lines paper. Now we have a ton of bleed spots that are occurring here. It's pretty much where there's writing, you see that the ink gets very deep into the paper. I'm just going after some of the darkest spots here. None of those spots touch the page underneath, so you're not ruining the next page, but you could not use the back of the page to write. Not in a fountain pen, or you're going to ruin both sides of your notes. The 1.1 has tiny feathering the entire way through. It does have a little bit of spread. It has no halo sheen, no shade, so don't take notes with a 1.1 stub on this paper. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 4 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, a little bit lighter than the stub. It does feather. When you look at quick, it's got tiny, tiny feathers. Not something that's going to be a problem for you taking notes. It's probably not going to be a real issue. It does spread just the littlest bit. It's a little bit wider than it normally is from this pen, but not a big deal there either. No halo, no sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation, we're not getting it. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing, which is always good to know if you're using it for notes. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Diamine's Lilac Night has an average dry time of 19 seconds, making it normal. The last writing sample is done on original crown mill paper. Now there's a couple spots. It's actually got quite a bit more show through than I expected. These spots are where it came through much heavier in the paper. I don't worry about the scrubby. I was surprised with that, although it wouldn't ruin the back and you could use the back and write. I was just surprised to see how deep it got in. No major ghosting. The 1.1. No feather, spread, halo sheen, no shade, very straightforward. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, with no feather, spread, halo sheen, some light shading as the is darker than everything around it. Quick goes dark to light to dark. 8 seconds to dry. When I say light, we're talking look at the cue. Dark on the left, lighter on the right of the cue, and then it gets dark into the rest of the word. 8 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both aren't really showing any color variation. We're really not getting it. The extra fine shows a tiny bit, but not really there. The smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Diamine's Lilac Night, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went with a nice magenta ink from Colorverse, Andromeda. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those different color playlists. So what do I think of Diamine's Lilac Night? The color in the writing looks very different than the swatch. The swatch looks much more blue. The swatch lies. This can give some nice color variation by pen and some decent shading. It tends to lean very blue. That can get it to pass in a professional environment. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I think a dry fine or dry medium pen are going to put down a nice tone that shows off some of the purple that's there. It's not going to let it just be drowned out and look more blue. It's going to let that purple show through. It's also going to allow you to have some nice shading. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Iroshizuku's Kosamusu, or Cosmos.